All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the East Brandywine Township Board of Supervisors, Thursday PM meeting, November 16th, 2023. And I want to remind everybody, a recording device will be in use during the meeting. We're going to open with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody please stand. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment for agenda items. Rules for conduct of public meetings established by Resolution 2001-08 include that the time allocated to each individual making a comment shall be 3 minutes, unless otherwise set by the presiding officer. Additional public comment may be granted at the discretion of the presiding officer at the conclusion of the meeting. And the time limit will be 3 minutes, and you can have more time at the end of the meeting. Is there any public comment on agenda items? All right, we're going to move on. We're going to have the swearing in of Officer Chris Missanini.
Good evening. I'm Mark Cozy. I'm the police chief for East Brandywine Township Police Department, if I have not met you before. I'm very honored tonight to introduce our newest police officer, Christopher Musumeci. Chris, you want to come on up? And I'd also like to introduce his wife, Natalie, who's going to join him. Christopher attended Goshen Central High School in New York and graduated in 2012. In 2012, he enrolled at the Valley Forge Military College in Wayne, Pennsylvania, and in 2013 transferred to Cabrini College in Radnor, Pennsylvania. Christopher graduated from Cabrini College in 2017 with a Bachelor of Arts degree in history and 2 minor degrees in Black Studies and criminology. Christopher entered the City of Philadelphia Police Academy in September 2017, graduated in 2018. While with the City of Philadelphia, Christopher was assigned to the Kensington Police District, and during his tenure, he received Perfect Attendance Awards and Accommodation of Merit. Christopher is married to his wife Natalie, and they reside in Media, PA. The Township and Police Department want to welcome Chris and his wife Natalie to the Township family, and we wish Christopher the best of luck in his new position. And now I'd like to introduce the East Brandywine Township Board of Supervisor, Chairman Carl Croft, who's going to administer your oath of office.
Raise your right hand. Put your other hand. I state your name, please.
Christopher Musumeci,
Do solemnly swear and affirm that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution and laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, laws and ordinances of the Township of East Brandywine, and the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics, that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as a police officer with fidelity, best of my ability. I will uphold and obey and enforce the law without consideration to a person's race, color, sex, religious creed, sexual orientation, age, national origin, ancestry, handicap, or disability. State I do.
I do.
Congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
Welcome to the department.
Congratulations, Chris.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Next on the agenda is the minutes of previous meeting. Board of Supervisors minutes, meeting minutes for November 2nd, 2023. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Treasurer's report and authorization to pay bills and approval of the payroll. I have reviewed the bills, including the deposits, and the payroll, and I'll make a motion that the treasurer's report and the authorization to pay bills, approval of payroll be so moved.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Reports, the Township Manager's report.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I have a brief budget process update for you this evening. The Budget Committee has been working since June to solicit and review budget requests from department heads, our community partners, and the township committees and commissions. Between August and mid-October, the committee met 4 times to hear presentations by all parties seeking funding. On October 17th, the committee began the difficult work of preparing a balanced draft budget for this board's consideration. The committee also met on October 24th and October 31st, as well as November 7th for this purpose. At your board's November 2nd meeting, the committee presented a draft budget for your consideration. This evening's action item, a little later on the agenda, the staff will be requesting that the board authorize staff and the township solicitor to advertise a preliminary budget for public comment as required by the second-class township code. At a future meeting, particularly December 7th, the board will be asked to consider resolutions adopting the real estate tax, millage, solid waste fees, and a transfer from the general fund to the capital fund. Lastly, the board will be asked to consider a resolution adopting a final budget at your meeting on December 21st. This evening, I have an update on the community park bathroom, as discussed at the last evening meeting of the Board of Supervisors. On October 13th, staff learned that the factory prefabricating the green flush bathroom for Phase 1 of our community park would have been unable to build or deliver the restroom before the original grant deadline of December 31st, 2023. I am pleased to announce this evening that the DCNR has granted an extension of this grant funding through the end of December 2024. It's my sincere hope to have a bathroom in the ground before the first quarter of next year. The township is hiring for our public works team. The township is currently seeking qualified applicants for 2 full-time positions on our public works team. Interested candidates can learn more about this opportunity on the township's website. The URL is ebrandywine.org/jobs. Last evening, the township hosted a township volunteer appreciation dinner. Honored were Bruce Rawlings, Alan Yefko, Jan Bedarczyk, Jason Winters, Jay Fisher, and others for their many years of service. In this season of thanks, I would also like to extend my thanks to the township volunteers, our partner public safety, the fire company's volunteers, and to all those who volunteer to improve our community. Lastly, this evening, I'd like to announce remaining events in the calendar year 2024. This Sunday, November 19th, the Historical Commission will present the fall speaker series featuring Old Cowan Historical Society. That will be in this room at 3 p.m. Parks and Recreation will host a holiday tree lighting on Saturday, December 2nd from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. with the official tree lighting happening at 4:30 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Luke Revan, Township Manager.
Thank you, Luke. Luke, do you want to give the building inspector's report?
I'm happy to do so. The permit activity report for October 2023 is as follows. There were 23 total building permits issued, 1 zoning permit issued. Total fees collected for building and zoning permits was $29,684.50. A total of 17 use and occupancy permits were issued, and 139 inspections were completed with 0 failures. Total fees for the month of October were $29,684.50. This report is respectfully submitted by Noreen King, Permits Administrator.
Thank you, Luke. And the next report is the Roadmaster's report.
I've not prepared a report for this evening, sir.
Thank you. And the police report.
Good evening. Police report for the month of October. Myself, along with Sergeant Ferraro, Officer Ray, Officer Smith, and East Brandywine Fire Company Assistant Chief Joe Monastir, were guests of honor at the Baptist Temple Diwali New Year celebration this past Sunday evening. Each of us were recognized and thanked for our service to the community. Following the ceremony, we had the opportunity to tour the facility, speak to members of the temple, and sample their sweet and savory vegetarian dishes that were prepared for the celebration. I'd like to thank Rasik Patel, who is the Community Outreach Director at BAPS, for inviting us, and all of us are looking forward to working with the temple in the future. I'd like to congratulate Deputy Police Chief Yankanich on the completion of his Command and Leadership Academy. As mentioned back in September, the Academy is a collaborative effort between the New Jersey State Association of Chiefs of Police and West Point Military Academy. The class ran for 14 weeks and consisted of both class instruction and at-home research projects. Today was the final exams, and going into today's exams, it was my understanding that the Deputy Chief was holding the #1 ranking in the class. The Academy does their graduations once a year, and they had told us that it would be scheduled sometime in the spring. And again, we'd like to congratulate the Deputy Chief on completing the Academy, and we're very proud of his accomplishments. Monthly statistics for October, we had 2,301 incidents. Investigations that were completed by detectives were 204. We had 6 criminal arrests, 1 summary arrest, 1 warrant arrest. There were no juvenile petitions. There were 14 traffic accidents investigated, 147 traffic citations, 46 traffic warnings, and officers logged 9,620. Training completed. Sergeant Ferraro and Detective Harnish completed less lethal recertification training, and Corporal Juan Lemus completed law enforcement firearm optics instructor certification. We have no correspondence, and you have copies of the monthly investigations and officer activity.
Thank you. Fire company report, Mr. Edwards.
Good evening, Mr. Croft. Fire company report for the month of October. We had 50 total incidents for the month, 29 fire, 21 medical. We had 15 fire calls in East Brandywine, 14 medical calls. We had an average of 11 personnel responding to fire calls, with 23 average for major incidents. We used 118 gallons of East Brandywine fuel. We had 3 training sessions with 26 personnel in attendance for a total of 259 training hours. We are going to hold our breakfast with Santa returning this year, and the event sold out with 260 people in 1 hour and a half. We are proud to say that we have 2 new Firefighter 1 graduates who were put through our in-house training last night, and they have now been given their black furnaces and can participate as senior firemen. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any old business? Moving on to new business. Item 7A, appointment of special counsel in the matter of Three Creeks LLC. Ed Foley, Ruxter, Foley, Milner, Land, and Kelly LLP. Mr. Revin.
Not sure I have anything further to add. I would submit in your packet is a biography of the candidate for appointment as special counsel in the matter of Three Creeks LLC. Mr. Foley, as you indicated, at this time, staff would respectfully ask the board to appoint Mr. Foley as the special solicitor.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Edward M. Foley as special counsel. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'm gonna abstain because of,
I'm sorry, what?
because of family.
You-
Myself.
Okay, that's, all right. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Foley, you're appointed. Next item, Mr. Revan.
Yeah, so next on your agenda is a recommendation for the appointment of an individual to fill a vacancy on the Open Space Committee. If I may be so bold as to usurp your powers, may I yield the balance of my time to Open Space Chairman Alan Yefko?
That would be fine with me.
Evening, members of the board. The Open Space Committee is pleased to recommend the appointment of Frank Alvarez to fill one of the positions vacated by longtime members Bob and Carolyn Long. Frank and his family are 13-year residents of the township. Frank spent most of his career as a human resource manager for the National Park Service. His job responsibilities included working with professionals in areas of natural and cultural resources, visitor protection, administration, and management of national parks, monuments, recreation areas, and trails. Initially, his area of responsibility included all Park Service sites in New England. He later transferred to this area in a similar capacity. This included the Frederick Law Olmsted National Historic Site, Longfellow, Washington Headquarters National Site, John F. Kennedy National Historic Site, Boston National Historical Park, and the Independence National Historical Park. He has a love of the land and will bring new perspectives to the Open Space Committee. Please accept our recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll make a motion that we appoint Frank Alvarez to one of the vacancies on the Open Space Committee.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And next is the item 8C is the preliminary budget, permission to advertise. Mr. Revenue again.
Sorry, camera operating delay. Thanks for your patience. All right. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, included in your packet this evening is a preliminary budget for the general fund and 8 other funds operated by East Brandywine Township. There is no substantial change since the presentation was made by representatives of the Budget Committee at your AM meeting in November. At this time, I would respectfully ask the Board of Supervisors to authorize myself and the solicitor to properly advertise this preliminary budget for public comment.
Okay, I noticed it had not changed since the presentation at our last meeting, so I'll make a motion to authorize the township to advertise the 2024 budget.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And item 8E, item 8D is the escrow release number 1 for the preserve at Horseshoe Meadows. Evan,
I
you
can handle that as well.
still have the floor.
In your packet is a letter dated November 10th from Pannoni, the township's engineer, recommending an escrow release in the amount of $199,940.86, the first such escrow release for the development, the preserve at Horseshoe Meadows. At this time, I respectfully ask the Board of Supervisors to authorize staff to process escrow release number 1 for Horseshoe Meadows.
All right, it is the first one, so there's still money left in there, and Nate has approved it, so I'll make a motion to approve the financial security release number 1 for the Horseshoe Meadows.
I'll second.
We had 2 seconds, that's great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And item number 8E is stormwater concerns on 621 Rock Raymond Road. Mr. O'Neill.
And my apologies for the missing L on the agenda. I misspelled your name.
Worse things have been done. So I'm Terry O'Neill with 2 L's, obviously. I've been a resident of the township for 34, 35 years. I own a couple houses in East Brandywine and also own a business in East Brandywine Township. Both of the houses are historic buildings, so I'm covered up by a lot of codes. I'm sorry to take people's time here, but they told me this is the venue to do this in. So what I'm concerned about is a little bit of overreach by our local government, and particularly stormwater management. I'm going to go through a little thing, but really what happened to me that blindsided me and my wife more than anything is when we're 80% through a project, we were brought into a little room and they said, you need to sign this document. I said, okay, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I looked at it carefully and I saw in there, it said, quote, I hereby give permission to the municipality, its authorized agents, and employees to enter upon the property from a public right-of-way or roadways at reasonable time and upon presentation of proper identification to inspect the BMP or whatever it's called and conveyances whenever it deems necessary for compliance with an agreement, the O&M plan, and municipality stormwater thing. So basically, the township said, you have no right to privacy anymore. And I said, well, just strike that and let's sign this and move on. They said, no, we're not going to strike it. I was like, really? And they said, no, and you have to add this to your deed that going forward, the township can enter the property. I have no problem. We deal with Natural Lands Trust. They call us up and say, can we inspect it? Sure, come inspect it. I am taken back by the fact that you can come on my property now. We don't know who the person is, but they can come on without a warrant and just say, we're going to inspect it. I don't see where that holds up in any court in the United States. And I keep looking at the chief of police here, and he can sympathize with me. If he thinks there's something wrong there, he goes and gets a permit. Or not a permit. You get a search warrant. Yes, thank you. Thank you. But this has gotten so out of control, and we talked about it, and I get it. Luke thinks I'm busting on him. He says this comes down from the state. That doesn't make it right. It's still wrong that you can enter my property. I have nothing to hide. Please come enter it. So now you make these rules and say you got to abide by them. So you start a fire and you don't want to put it out. So I come back and say, well, who is this person? I put this in writing. What is the certification they have? Will they give me insurance to come on there? To inspect my stormwater management, you're going to have to go out in a pasture, and there's going to be animals there. And if he or she gets hurt, what happens? Luke said, well, we hold a certificate of insurance up here. I don't want to sue the township. You can't sue the township. Who's kidding who? I should have a certificate of insurance. I want to know if he's armed. I want to know if he has background checks. These are all reasonable things if you guys are going to put forth these rules. Certainly if the chief is sending out a police to serve a warrant, all of these things have been checked. That young man that just got indoctrinated here, I'm sure you've got background checks galore on him. So we've hired an outside firm to do this. Now let me tell you about the outside firm. I'm going to pay dearly for what I'm about to say. And you cut me off when my 3 minutes is up.
No, you're on the agenda. You actually get more.
Oh, all right. Well, I promise not to take more than necessary.
You could add a bonus 3 earlier.
Well, at present, the stormwater management thing is very confusing and very difficult to understand and very, very expensive. And it's not applied equally, we're going to see. So somewhere in the whole mix, and I think before anybody puts any plans on the table for anything, you tell them that you're going to have to give up your right to privacy. If you're going to do something in this township that requires stormwater management, you're going to have to give that up, and you're going to come on property as need be. And I know you're not going to, but there's an old saying, if you let the camel's nose in the tent, soon the whole camel's going to be in there. So no, your nose is coming in on my property right now, and I don't want the rest coming in there. The process is confusing and difficult. Here's a list of things that probably affect other people, and I think it's going to be heard this afternoon. Whether you're doing a swimming pool, deck, whatever, eventually you're going to need to get some sort of design if it's big enough. First of all, the number of people you can go see for this design is pretty limited. It's almost like a boys' club, if you would. We know who all the guys are, or ladies. So they go and they do calculations and do this and do a design and all this stuff, and these are registered, licensed PE, professional engineers by the state of PA or somewhere else. I've done 3 different ones, and in each case, the people I hired, their work was deficient because it was rejected. It goes out to an outside source, they review it and say, no, you need to change this, you need to change that. Why do they do that? That's how you stay in business as far as I'm concerned. Then it goes back to your person that said he's going to charge you $5,000, but it's kicked back, so the clock's running. He makes revisions, send them back there. If you make issue, which I kind of did last time, well, what happened to me? I'll tell you what happened. She tabled them. When I called and said, what's going on here, please call me. Did she call me back? What do you think? No. I called her again. Did she call me back? Nope. So what we did was table the whole plans. Then we actually retracted the fact that we had to go ahead on it because Terry's acting up. So there will be hell for me to pay down the road with this outside contractor. Then when you finally get through, then it gets layered on because we upset some people there, so now we need more socks and more socks. Somebody comes out to site and goes, yeah, I know we approved this, but we need you to change it, and you need to pay more money. We dug this big giant hole. They said it's got to be 10 feet deep by this. It was $160,000 for the stormwater management. Lo and behold, we dig a pit, go down 10 and a half feet, everything's cool. We wait a month or so after a couple weeks of rain, we dig the pit, and at 9 feet 6 inches, we hit water. What do? You have to go get it redesigned. How much is it going to cost? They can charge you whatever they want. Nobody here cares. Now, let's keep in mind, we're not talking about a development here. We're talking about one house on 40 acres. $17,000 later for the redesign, length times width times depth. We came up with the same cubic feet, and we moved it up the hill 2 feet. 17 grand. That was for the redesign, not the contractor's fee. This is, guys, it's kind of out of hand. I'm not Toll Brothers. And I want to be treated fairly. On this same property, I got to catch each little piece of water that comes down for the health and safety of the people that live in this community. But if I go up the hill on my property on the 40 acres, I got an 18-inch pipe here and an 18-inch pipe there. And on any rainstorm, we don't care about the health and safety of the people in the community at that point because the township goes, we can't fix it, somebody else did it. It would cost a fortune to do it, but when do you guys care about how much something cost? You don't care when it's my dime, but when it's yours. So how come it's okay to dump that on my property? I have ruts from this water going through there. I can walk through. It's up to here on me. But that's okay. But my 6 inches short, that's not okay. Then I feel like we're not treated fairly. I'm sorry, am I doing that? And I'm sorry to do this. The fire department knows about it. As I'm doing my stormwater management, I've got socks all over. If people don't know what socks are, they're these big things to make sure dirt and debris doesn't get down to the creek. I had thousands of feet of them. Thousands. My shop is right next to the fire department. We have a very nice relationship. But I'm watching there, and Joe goes, don't get me in trouble. Don't make this stop. But I'm looking there, and this is going to play into that development that's going on in a little bit. Before any of my dirt could have gotten to the creek, it would have had to go past these socks and then over 200 yards, 300 yards of grass to get. It's not getting there at all. But when I look out my office window, and there's all this construction going on there, and piles of dirt and everything, there's a stormwater grate in their parking lot. I have a video of it. I'll show it to you separately, but I'm watching this muddy water just streaming down the parking lot, streaming, and it's going in this little culvert, which goes in that culvert and goes right across the street to the place we're about to talk about. How many socks were put around there? Take a guess. None. Not a one. I even called the township at one point and said, you know what? I have all of these socks. There should be some over there. I'll donate some if you want. The township was clever. They put a sock out, took a picture, because I sent them a picture without the sock. This isn't on the grate. This is on another thing. They never did cover that. That just got trashed every week for months. They took a picture, sent it to me, and 2 days later, they moved that sock out of there. But this grate that goes right to, what's the words that they use in there? Cold water fishery. You know, we want it to be treated fairly. If it's good for me to do all this, isn't it good for the township to do it? And I know what happened to me because, you know, this just keeps building. And I know I'm just up here venting. I don't think you folks know what's going on out there with outside contractors. I paid a lot of money and I got kicked around. The same firm that's doing, I think, that's doing that is doing my building inspection. And I heard earlier that there were 0 rejects. I think I paid $8,000 to have a building inspector check. I don't know what they do. Somebody please tell me what they do, because I literally can't move into the place that I've spent several $1 million on. I literally can't move in there because of all the defects in there that should have been pointed out.
I don't think you paid I don't think we charge for building inspections.
Well,
So they're free? They should be.
they would, a failed inspection fee. There is an inspection fee for failed inspection, but the permit application fee generally covers inspection.
Yeah, and isn't that like $8,000 or something?
You've kind of drifted into 2 points,
Yeah,
and I'd
I
like to
do
go
that.
back to your first point.
okay.
And I'm speaking as a resident, not as a supervisor, who's lived in here 44 years in the township. The stormwater regulations are not set by the township. The permits, the agreement you were asked to sign is required by the county. We're just as culpable as you if we don't get you to sign it, because we're required.
Understand.
I want to make sure that you understand that. And the county's required through their soil conservation district, and which is basically follows federal rules. And you're right, as an individual, not as a township supervisor, I would resent somebody coming onto my property too, but the only way you're going to get that changed is to get people in the county and Washington to change.
I'm starting here, sir.
I know, but we're like you, we have no power to do that.
I'm sorry, I thought this was a venue that I could start at this and say, you guys would push uphill and say, you know what, our residents
That we
really...
have.
So, may I?
Yeah.
So, just to touch upon rules and regulations, I had to do stormwater management just 5 years ago. I built my house for East Brandywine Township. $40,000 I paid to get my stormwater management complete. We too hit rock. We didn't hit water, we hit rock, and we had to redesign it and make it longer. So I had costs. I too had to sign the same form that you did, and I will tell you, now I'm gonna drop your jaw. I agree with you that we need to do something with relationships with our vendor, who is an outside entity, who I believe it's Cedarville right now. And I see Nate's in the back. Nate, is it Cedarville or Pinoni?
Cedarville.
So I will agree with you, and I would love to, and I can't do it on my own, but I would love to obviously get permission from the other supervisors, as well as talk it over with the solicitor. But I think that at the very least, though we are simply relaying a message from the county, maybe we could be the intermediate and say, Mr. O'Neill, this is your certified letter coming to you. On the 15th of this month, Cedarville will be doing our stormwater management inspection on your property. You have your notice, everybody's happy, you don't just have to worry about somebody coming in there. But that's something I think that the township could easily do.
No, the horse has already been let out. I'm not, if you didn't do this and somebody called me, I'd say, what time? I'll have tea or beer ready for you. You're more than welcome to come over. It's the whole principle and going forward that you have forced us at the 11th hour, no less, to sign this document that say we can come on your property unannounced. And it's not just for them, it's really anybody, any of you guys could. You're township people, come on.
Hey Nate, since you're in the back again, sorry to keep, are we doing the same practices as other townships and everybody in the county? Nate, by the way, is Pannoni Engineering, so I figured he's better suited for this.
Maybe not this mic works. I apologize. Yeah, Nate Klein, everybody. I live on both sides of this line, right? We design projects, we're municipal engineers for projects, so I feel your pain on both sides. It's gotten extremely complicated, extremely challenging, extremely paperwork heavy, and it's gotten costly. As Kyle knows, we worked on his project. He came in, I think it was a 3-lot subdivision, took some time, but we did the inspections and work on that. This township is not implementing anything that is substantially different than anybody else in Chester County. Unfortunately, these were handed down. The federal government to the DEP, and then the county implemented it countywide here. Are there ways to improve the process? Are there ways to maybe try to figure out some savings at the lower level for individual residential property owners, things of that nature? Absolutely. We can certainly brainstorm with you guys, talk to Cedarville, talk to the staff, and see if there's ways to improve the process, make things easier, try to reduce some of those costs. We've got some simplified method opportunities where it's a calculation you yourself can do for some of these smaller projects. But yes, as these projects get larger, it gets more and more complicated. I know it's not the answer you want to hear, but I'm just giving you straight from kind of what I'm seeing as a municipal engineer personally in 7 or 8 municipalities. And I've had the same conversation with business owners, residents, developers throughout. And yeah, can a Toll Brothers or a large developer handle it? Absolutely. Small homeowner gets much more complicated.
And again, I'm taking up more time than I should. It's not so much the stormwater management. That's an important thing. It needs to be done. And hey, I get it. It's work with. If you do hit a problem, you're saying, well, we can work with this and we can work with that. You can call the outside agency here and they don't return a phone call. So that leaves poor Lou on the hook where you guys.
Well, that's on us. That's on us to improve that.
And
We'll
it
take
needs
that.
to be improved. Even the home inspection, I tried to get him to come back out and look at it. Look, I even have an email going to the township saying, how come he won't email me or call me? They just don't do it. You're paying them money. I'm paying you to pay them, and they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So I'm ratting him out a little bit. I don't know.
I have a question for Nate. I thought that you could ask the Chester County Water Resources, whatever it's called, to come out and do your inspection.
No.
They do come out and inspect.
In certain cases, you can ask the Chester County Conservation District, and they will come out. But typically, they're only going to come out on projects of an acre or larger in most cases.
Well, he's larger than 1 acre.
Of
I'm gonna tell you right now-
development or construction, not just your property size.
All right, I had them come out. I was a small developer, so that's why they came out? Okay.
And the proverbial signature for this affidavit that he signs, we all signed it, is that the norm, obviously, in the township, or in the state, I should say?
Yeah, and in all due respect, as long as I've been doing this, is the first time I've heard this objection, and I'm not saying it's unfair at all. I think it could be the first time someone's taken the time to dig through and really read it and maybe explain kind of the feedback that they're seeing on the other side, whereas maybe, people are rubber stamping or just signing because they want their pool project and they want their project to get.
Power of attorney.
Yeah, so maybe there's another way to figure that out and find some middle ground that's more flexible. I don't think that's a bad question.
But we're not going to solve the problem tonight, clearly, but having Nate here, having Tom here, I think is instrumental to getting to the root of this. But from what we can do, honestly, I'm just being honest with you, the only thing I can throw on the table is one thing would be the certified mail, that somebody would be notified, hey, your inspection, it's every 3 years?
Everyone's a little bit different, 2, 3, 5.
Yeah, it says maybe in 5 years. Again, this isn't the issue. The issue is, come on at any point now.
But what I'm saying
I've
is,
given you due course, and that's wrong.
the
I don't wanna
township's
do that.
stance would be simple, and I can speak for the township, I think clearly on this. The township is not going on anybody's property unless we need to for that stormwater management. There's no reason, trust me, there's many loopholes the townships use. They use use and occupancy, sale of a house to get onto your property. East Brandywine doesn't do that. So, you know, I understand your frustration, but
Think of overreach, somewhere to go back there. I mean, even right now, and then I'm gonna wrap it, again, with 2 historical homes, which I don't want listed as historical, but I have no choice. They never asked me if I wanted, the one already was, but I have to come to a meeting and ask them if I can chip the ugly white plaster off and point it. I have to come to a meeting and ask them if I can change the color of the shutters. Look, we're a little bit of an overreach. That's all I'm saying. I'm sorry to take up so much time, but again, I think we need to look at what we're gonna do. Lisa sent me a list, if I wanna have a block party, what I have to do is frightening. Medical people there, I need porta potties here, I need to apply 30 days ahead of time. I need to supply you with a certificate of insurance for $1 million and name you as additionally insured. But yet you're gonna send people on my property without any insurance. So fair is fair, guys, that's all I'm saying. And I don't know that the board knows about this, I don't know who else to go to.
All right, well, let us take it under advisement with Luke, and we'll start working on
Thanks,
some of the
Nick.
ideas. I understand some of your frustrations, too, being a small developer.
May I
Yes.
respond? First of all, sorry, let me cue up. Camera pointing at the correct party here. Okay, I've had opportunities to exchange a host of emails with Mr. O'Neill, and I did not want to interrupt his opportunity to express or to share his experience with our stormwater ordinance in this venue. But I do want to respond to a couple particular points, because the audience is now a little wider, in as much as we record these meetings for later broadcasts, and I just want to make a few points about our stormwater regulations. I want to start with the O&M agreement. The O&M agreement is verbatim from Chester County's model stormwater ordinances, which all municipalities in Chester County must adopt due to a state law called Act 167. I've personally sat in on the execution of O&M agreements with over 100 families. Not just the applicant, but everybody who's listed on the deed needs to show up. And I think, you know, Mr. O'Neill had to come with family members to also sign. Let me say, my observation is that no one enjoys doing this. I think absolutely the frustration is extremely common. And to the extent that that activity occurs outside of the Board of Supervisors' view, I applaud Mr. O'Neill for bringing it to your attention. That said, as a member of staff, I do not feel that I can negotiate individual O&M agreements. Everybody is executing the same O&M agreement, and it's the O&M agreement that is in the model Chester County ordinance. I think the next thing I'd like to address is the township's compliance with our own ordinance. When we're talking about a situation that predates the stormwater ordinance, which is approximately 2014, yes, there are locations which were built out without regard to managing stormwater. But I'll use as an example, earlier this evening, I made a reference to the bathroom we're building in Phase 1 of the community park. That bathroom has a stormwater management feature which has been constructed by our Public Works team. So the township does comply with the regulations that we ask others to comply with. I think it's also worth mentioning that the fire company, while an important partner with the township, is not the same legal entity as the township. The fire company is a 501c3 nonprofit, and they complied with regulations of our building permit and stormwater ordinance when they were constructing the improvements to their station. I think when I talk about from a policy perspective, I don't want anything that I say to be perceived as not taking an important responsibility for customer service. Of all the concerns raised this evening, customer services is clearly in our roundhouse. I make no apologies. I will do nothing but apologize for a bad customer service experience. That is within our purview and important to address, that we are, regardless of whether we can change public policy or not, responsible for quality quality customer service. And so please don't interpret me continuing as diminishing our important role as staff in providing good customer service. There are a few elements of the stormwater ordinance where we have some control. For example, the threshold at which stormwater management is required. The township, in adopting an ordinance by the county, opted into the most liberal interpretation that is allowed under that ordinance. Second, townships can opt, and our engineer made a reference to this, into simplified stormwater management, so that small projects can be done without the need to hire an engineer. We have that as a feature of the ordinance we've adopted. Thirdly, we can determine what the fee structure is. And we recently changed our fee structure to go away from a time and material to a flat fee system, so that regardless of the number of times it must be revised and resubmitted, the applicant is not paying for both their own engineer and the township's engineer during review. And so I wanted to make that point. And then lastly, the O&Ms described, and we recently had to adopt a new one that describes a different schedule. The O&M that Mr. O'Neill executed calls for inspections every 5 years. Respectfully, I don't know who will perform the inspection in 2027, and I quite frankly cannot know who will perform the inspection in 2027. So it's difficult to me to say how that individual, I don't even think the board can commit that I would be here in 2027. So I have a difficulty in describing exactly how that inspection cycle will play out 5 years from now. That said, I appreciate, I think it's important that people who have bad experiences with public policy have an opportunity, and it is literally my favorite thing about local government, that unlike the state, unlike the feds, you can come to a meeting and express your view on that. So my thanks to Mr. O'Neill.
I'd like to just follow up with one thing, and it's not a 5-year thing. It says in here that what I signed is property as you see. It doesn't say you're going to come every 5 years. You can go there tonight, tomorrow, whenever. So everything else you said is pretty accurate, but that, no. We've opened the door, you've insisted that you property, not you person. Whenever you need.
All right,
Right.
thank you. We will work on it and take it under advisement, especially the customer service and some things, and identify what we can control over what we can't control, and try to fix what we can control first. Thank you. All right, moving on. Subdivision and zoning applications. I believe there's none.
There are none.
Ordinances and resolutions for consideration, there are none. Public comment on non-agenda items. Public comment? There is a notice, there has been no executive session has been held between Friday, November 3rd, 2023, and the PM session on November 16th, 2023. The second notice is a conditional use hearing for the application of Three Creeks LLC will follow this session. We're going to take a 10-minute adjournment to 7:30 so people can use any facilities and get set up. And I'm going to put a time limit to 9 p.m. for the conditional use hearing. After that, I think it would be non-productive.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting, and we'll reconvene at 7:30.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.